I'm Scott Munn, along with Tug Coward in the Warrior Alliance Network studios in Atlanta, Georgia. If you're a military brat like me or a veteran with kids like Tug and you love baseball, then this is the show for you, because today we'll meet an Air Force brat with an extremely successful career with the Atlanta Braves for over 20 years. Scott Cunningham, Atlanta Braves Vice President of Broadcasting and Fan Experience, is in the Warrior Alliance spotlight. As a military brat raised on Air Force bases around the world for the first 21 years of his life, Scott Cunningham is no stranger to the military family lifestyle. At age 12, his family moved to Spain. He later graduated high school in Germany, where he attended his first 2 years of college at the University of Maryland Munich campus. And then he returned to the States to finish school at Florida International University with a Bachelor of Science degree in communication. Cunningham has worked with the Atlanta Braves since 2005, and as the VP of Broadcasting and Fan Experience, he and his team handle game presentation at Truist Park and all special events for the organization. He's also the liaison to the team's TV and radio broadcasting partners. The Braves are known as one of MLB's most patriotic and military supportive organizations, and Scott has expanded that reputation with the team's tremendous support for the Warrior Alliance and by personally serving on the Warrior Alliance Board of Directors. Scott Cunningham of the Atlanta Braves, welcome to the Warrior Alliance Network.
Thank you so much. It's quite an honor to be here.
Goodness, it's so great to have you. Somebody so connected to the Braves, a team that I grew up watching on TBS with my daddy. And not to make this a sad story, because it's not. It's one of the most amazing things that could have happened. When my dad passed, the last thing we did was watch the Braves together the night before.
That's beautiful.
It's the
I
truth.
love hearing that.
Yeah, it's. I grew up. I didn't know anything else. You know, the Braves were what we did. If we would watch them on TBS or listen to them on the radio, it was every day. We didn't miss. Scott, same way. Grew up a lifelong Braves fan. I wonder, and I'm sure you know how impactful the Braves have been on families throughout the Southeast, and really with TBS, years ago across the country, there are pockets of Braves fans all over America, all over the world, really. Mm-hmm. Because you were stationed overseas and probably kept up with baseball teams and sports and that sort of stuff. Does it ever come up? Is it ever discussed the impact the Braves have had on people and families outside of what they do on the field? They're legendary, like Coca-Cola. It's that kind of brand where it impacts you in everything you do in life.
It's one of my most favorite things about working for the Braves and what I do with the team, being the vice president of fan experience and broadcasting, is we get to create an environment where memories can be made. And when I hear stories like what you just talked about, where you have a vivid memory you're never going to forget with your dad
ever,
and people just coming to a game with their kids or with their loved ones or just on dates. I mean, little things that happen at a baseball game. Part of my job is to kind of foster that environment where those types of things can happen. And it's something that me and my whole team, have a passion for. We really enjoy creating. Again, we don't make the memories for you guys. We just create an environment where those memories can be made, and that's what I love about baseball. Is it is a sport that allows you to sit back and make memories with the people that you're there. It's very communal. It's a community type of a sporting event that gives you the time to be able to create those memories, and it's a very special thing.
Speaking of memories, I can really relate to what you went through growing up on military installations. Air Force and Army, very similar, although you guys, like we talked about, have a better post-exchange, or you have the BX, and it's just superior, right? So, and like we talked about before the show, in 1985, my dad called a team meeting, if you will, the family meeting, to say we were going to be transferred either to Germany or Atlanta, and did we have a preference? And I've been watching the Braves on TBS, like Tug said, and I was cheering for Atlanta all the way. So I moved here for the Braves, and so that's why it's so exciting to talk to you. But growing up on Air Force bases around the world, tell folks what your experience was like as a military brat and how it shaped your life.
So just to give you a little context, my dad, retired Lieutenant Colonel Gerald Cunningham, who served 3 tours in Vietnam, 2 in B-52s, and then went back again for another tour in F-4s. He's a backseater and a navigator. Mm-hmm. By the time and since then, he was a commander of the infancy of the cruise missile program, and then he was the commander at Holloman Air Force Base at the test track there out in the White Sands Desert. So he had like an over 30-year career in the Air Force. Mm-hmm. And my entire life, I grew up, my entire life on military bases, around military bases, and then overseas. Like I said, I left the States when I was 12, came back when I was 21. So all those formative years of growing up were done on bases as a military dependent, living in different cultures as an American. And so I am who I am today because of how I was raised. I was born in Sacramento in 1967. From there, moved to New Hampshire, Michigan, back to California, North Carolina, then up to Ohio, and that was all but before the age of 6.
Mm-hmm.
Wow.
So there's a lot of moving around. Then from there for 6 years, then we moved over to Spain, Germany, England, and then 21 years old, I come back to the States. So how it developed me is a love for travel, number one.
Yeah.
You know, I love traveling. I love seeing other cultures, meeting new people. I think that fostered that for me. The patriotism I had, the love for my country, came from when I was living overseas. Because over there, you have each other, right? You're Americans first. And that's how you, as a dependent or even active duty, I mean, you're first and foremost, you relate to people because you're American. That's what you've got in common. Racism, I didn't experience any of that until I came back to the States. You know,
it doesn't exist on post. It doesn't exist.
I mean, we're Americans first, and then going off post or off base,
mm-hmm.
you're an American, and I experienced a lot of prejudice against me because I was an American.
Right.
Especially in Spain, it was not far from the Franco eras of the communist Spain, so we still weren't, really liked in that country. So when I went off base, there was rules even saying for some of the military couldn't go off base with their uniforms. They were told to change before they went off base. And we lived off base. We didn't live on base.
Mm-hmm.
So I was experiencing a lot of that stuff just as an American citizen. So my patriotism that I have today and my love for this country was formulated by the experience that I had over there as well. So,
I can only imagine that when the Braves do the displays that they do, because they blow me away as a veteran and as a person that loves this country like you do.
Mm-hmm.
When I see that flag in the outfield that covers the entire outfield at Truist Park, or I see a flyover, or fireworks, or God Bless America with Timothy Miller, whatever it is, every time, and this is going to sound like I'm exaggerating, and I promise you I would swear in front of a court, put my hand on the good book, that every time I see it, the hair on the back of my neck stands up. Every time. It never changes.
Mine too.
It's unbelievable to see, and I love the fact that the Braves embrace it the way they do, that they know where their fan base is and how much their fan base cares. Since you were in the military or a military family, have extended family that have served as well, challenges. There are challenges when you're getting out of the military. What are some of the challenges that you or family members have dealt with when they're transitioning to civilian life?
So I've got two brothers that served. My older brother was a career Air Force flight doc for his entire career and just retired just a couple years ago. My younger brother went to law school and joined the Coast Guard as a JAG officer, and then transitioned after 4 years right into the State Department. So he's still serving in the State Department right now. My older brother's two sons are Navy SEALs, currently
Wow.
over at in SEAL Team 3 over in San Diego. So I do have extended family that's in there. I've experienced the transition through my dad and my brother, and I got to tell you, transitioning from the military to the civilian life is I've witnessed it. It's and kind of and experienced it vicariously through these guys, and it's not an easy process. It's just like anybody else leaving. You lose a job, you need another job. It's a scary feeling of like, what am I going to do next? Well, amplify that by people that these military guys have got, usually from high school or college, went right into the military, were told what they're going to do, were trained on it, to really good training, and then given them the job to do at a high level. And then they're moved from one place to another to do different jobs, but they're trained on it. I mean, there's a structure in the military that just doesn't exist in civilian world, right? And when you're leaving that and you're leaving that fraternal order and that camaraderie that you get in the military and go into the civilian life, you don't have that structure anymore, and it's just chaos. So just amplify the typical person that's looking for a new job after losing one, and amplify that by 10. That's what these people are going through. So luckily, my father and my brother don't have sad stories. They all were, both of them were able to transition out relatively well. It was during that transition period, they were as scared as anybody else. I remember my dad, when he transferred after 30 years, he was sending me his resume to send out to people, if anybody that I could think of that he might be a good fit, could I help him, find a job? And I was like, this is my dad now asking me to help him find a job, and our job as military family is to support him,
of course, throughout
his career. And this was just another way, and I just felt to me it was sad because he was always taking care of us, and now I felt like, man, he's looking for work, and now it's up to me to help him find those jobs. But again, he transitioned relatively well, relatively soon. He was off to another career, and it worked out well for them.
Man, I tell you, our military men and women are incredible at just flexibility and the ability to adapt and overcome. I mean, that's a military mantra right there, adapt and overcome.
100%.
You came back in when you were 21, you said, complete college. You chose a path in professional sports down in South Florida. Been with the Florida Panthers, Miami Marlins, and the Heat as well. How'd you end up with the Braves?
So, long story short, I wanted to join the Air Force and become a fighter pilot, to be honest with you. And my path kind of changed halfway through college when I realized back in the late 80s, there was very few slots for fighter pilots available. There was guys graduating from the Air Force Academy that just weren't getting the fighter pilot slots because they weren't available. And I knew I didn't have the grades to compete with those guys. And I didn't want to be a bus driver in the sky. But I loved flying. My dad was a private pilot, and he'd take me up a couple times, and I just loved doing it. So I figured, I said, well, I got to do something different. And I just fell in love with the broadcast production. So decided to change my focus on communications. I was actually at the University of Florida at the time because after leaving University of Maryland Munich campus in Germany, met a girl there that was transferring to University of Florida. So I followed her there, and she ended up becoming my wife.
There's always a girl involved.
It's always a girl.
There's a Riley Green song called "There Was This Girl."
Yes, exactly.
If you're familiar with country music at all.
So I ended up studying communications, broadcast production track. She graduated before I did, moved to Miami. That's what took me down there. And I stayed in Miami after graduating from Florida International University and worked as a producer-director in television. So I worked for a TV station that owned the broadcast rights to the Miami Marlins. It was the Florida Marlins back then.
Yeah.
And the Miami Heat. And we did dolphin shows. They had the sports niche in the marketplace. Became the sports producer and traveled around the country with both those teams, broadcasting the games back to South Florida for their over-the-air network. And just loved it. And I was after a while, after about 5-6 years of doing that, the Florida Panthers hockey team came to town, and they were looking for somebody that could produce a broadcast quality show for their in-arena audience. And so they hired me to be their director of game presentation. And I was able to, within about 4 years working for them, to make a name for myself in the industry, thankfully. And the end of 2004 came, and the Atlanta Braves called me up asking me if I'd be interested in leading their charge, because they just went to a high-definition scoreboard and a high-definition control room at Turner Field back in 2005, and got hired by the Braves. So that's what brought me up here to Atlanta.
I'm telling you, it was a good spot, a great team to work for, no doubt. As the VP of broadcast and fan experience for the Braves, what's your day look like?
Well, you know what? That's another thing I love about my job. It changes every day. I mean, we're in the event business, right? The event planning business. So during the off season, it's a lot of planning because we plan for the entire season, plan for the year. It's just not one game at a time. We've got 81 games that we've got to Major League Baseball games that we've got to plan for. So putting on those events are huge events 81 times a year. and a lot of them are back-to-back 10 days in a row, 6 days in a row, 7 days in a row. So you need to have your ducks in a row before the season begins. You have to have a good idea of what you're doing. And you got to plan for a lot of stuff, especially the theme nights that we do, like the military appreciations. And, I mean, it's getting people in places and communicating all that stuff and coordinating all that stuff. It's a huge, huge undertaking. And I've got a great team of people that I work with that are able to pull that stuff off. So it's planning, and then during the season, it's more executing. So my day changes every single day, which is what I love about it. But it allows me to be creative, and it allows me to lead great creative people. I just can't be happier.
And military brats, they learn to be flexible as they grow up. And you've obviously had to be flexible because the baseball fan experience has really evolved over the past 20 years that you've been doing it. Hasn't it evolved a lot?
It really has. Back when I started, prior to actually with my days at the Florida Panthers, I would say that in sports, the game presentation or the fan experience just wasn't that important to teams back in those days. We're talking 30 years ago now, right?
Yeah.
There's a handful of teams that got it, and they would go and they would invest in it. And the Braves were one of the early adapters of that. The Florida Panthers certainly were. They invested in it where they wanted their fan base to actually have a good time. Before, teams relied on the product on the field or on the ice or on the court to draw the fans to come in. And that works when you're a winning team, but then when you're not a winning team, it kind of fails. And then if you're not taking care of your fans when you're winning, your fans aren't going to take care of you when you're losing. The avids will, but the avids are a very, very small percentage of what the fan base is. So over the years, teams have really invested in their fan experience, and now over the past 20 years, and I'd say probably 10, 15 years ago and more, I think now every team has realized the importance of taking care of the fans when they come to the game. And it's one of the biggest things that I've seen philosophically. And of course, technically, you've got all kinds of video boards and audio programs and you name it that have really enhanced the fan experience as well. That's been a big change over the 20 years.
And one thing I've noticed about the patriotism and the incredible support for the military that's always been there with the Braves, and Tug was talking about it earlier. I mean, it does bring, you were saying the hair stands up. For me, I'll admit it, there's been a tear in my eye a few times. And one that I really love is that seat that we keep empty in honor of a POW or MIA, and usually it's guarded by a Marine, isn't it? What are some of the programs that you've come up with or that you oversee, both to honor veterans and support military initiatives that the Braves really should be proud of?
So all the theme nights that we do that support our military, like we'll always do in a military appreciation game that we try to do around Memorial Day. It's one of my favorite days to do because we get to really engage with all of the military branches and bring them on. Exactly.
Yeah, I got the hat on right now. Yeah,
exactly.
For Armed Forces Day. Yeah,
I love that hat too.
That's a great looking hat, man. Because sometimes hats get busy.
Oh yeah,
that one's so balanced.
I love it.
Me too. It's my favorite.
It's got the stars that represent all the branches of the service, including the new Space Force. So I love
exactly.
that.
Yeah. Exactly.
That's cool, man.
Yeah. So I get to program those events. And we've got a Hometown Hero is another one of our programs that I oversee. That is one of my favorites as well. We get to invite a veteran or active duty military member to a game and tell their story to the entire stadium, and then we bring them out in between an inning after telling their story, and it allows our fans to really show their appreciation for what they've done. And it kind of really gets me with the hair that stands up in the back of my head, especially when we do this with our Vietnam veterans, because they weren't really well received when they came back from the war back in the early 70s, and being able to see 40,000 people stand up and applaud them for something they did back in those days, for me, it's a very, very special moment.
It's very humanizing too, because it's easy to say, well, I support the military, and you see a small documentary piece that you put together and the Braves put together, and you're like, that's cool. But then when you see that person come out on the field, it's a different level because it humanizes it. It goes, this is the person that you just heard about.
Exactly.
And
That's
I love
incredible.
I love how a lot of times you have their family with them who also serve. They may not wear the uniform, but they also serve.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. And I love watching how the players and umpires and coaching staff interact with these guys as well. It just it's touching.
And now you're serving on the Warrior Alliance Board of Directors. And as a former military brat, I think once you're a military brat, you're always one. So as a military brat, how do you see the Warrior Alliance impacting service members and families in their transitions?
So I love the Warrior Alliance. It's near and dear to my heart, and that's why I accepted a position on their board. They do great work. They really do. And they do great work in what is really important to me is that transition period, because I experienced that transition period that we've been talking about that's difficult. I experienced that as a military brat because when I came back to the States as 21, I grew up on military bases and in the structure of those bases. You know, the streets are all square, the buildings are all numbered. There's just a sense of structure that calms you, right? And coming to the United States, I had been gone for 9 years. It was like a foreign country to me, and it was scary, right? And so I had to make my own way, and I understand the feeling that these people have to some degree, right? I mean, I wasn't the military guy that was trained, and now I've got to worry about, providing for my family now. I was just going over into college and having to provide for myself, so I understand how that works. The fact that there's a place like the Warrior Alliance that allows military members to transition easier into civilian life is wonderful. It's something that I think is absolutely needed. Where the Warrior Alliance is allowed, what they'll do is they'll take and they help these warriors transition by literally finding out what their issues are, and then pointing them to companies,
matching them with the solution
that can actually help them with their need, and they don't just hang up the phone after that. I mean, they've got navigators there that are like counselors that will stay with them, follow up with the veterans and family members. There's all kinds of stuff with family members. There's camps that kids can go to. There's job opportunities and job fairs that military dependents can go to. I mean, it's a wonderful company that literally connects the dots for these military guys as they're transitioning out of the military.
How do you convince people to call, though? Because I think, especially veterans, people in the military, they are the solution most of the time. It's not, I need help, let me go find help. It's, I'm rushing in, I am the help.
Yep.
Convincing them to pick up the phone and call the Warrior Alliance or a family member, one of those family members that are waiting for that help that they need, but they're just unsure and they hear about this, convince them.
I see. That's the problem that I think that we've got right now, right? And it's shows like this. It's getting out into the media and letting and out into the public and allowing the public to understand that there is it's not just, the Warrior Alliance isn't just another charity. This is there's a company out there that can actually help you transition and getting out there and letting, you're right, these guys are military folks are used to doing things on their own, aren't really the first ones to stand up and say, hey, I need help. It's just getting the word out to these people saying, hey, there's a place you can go to that's honorable, that can help you with, you don't have to be in dire straits in order to get help. If there's anything that you need, the fact that you served our country, we want to serve you.
It's interesting you said dire straits, because we talk about this a lot, and Scott can back me up on this. Usually people don't call until it is dire straits, and you don't have to wait that long. And you're right, it doesn't have to be that you're homeless or that you're suffering some sort of medical emergency.
Right.
It can be as simple as, hey, I'm signing a lease on a new condo or a new apartment, and I don't know what this lease says. The Warrior Alliance can get you a lawyer to read it and explain it to you in everyday American terms.
Exactly.
That's the beauty of what the Warrior Alliance is. So the fact that you're willing to serve on the board is so encouraging, and I think a lot of people will, once we get the message out, we're working hard. Scott and I are working really, really hard to get this message out as hard as we can, and it's people like you that bring credibility, in my opinion, to what we're saying.
Yeah. Yeah, I love it.
And if you're listening right now, go to thewarrioralliance.org and just sign up. And like Tug said, you don't have to be in trouble right now. You can just want to level up a little bit. So thewarrioralliance.org. Also, Braves.com. Check that out to figure out how to get out to that 4th of July or that Memorial Day game. You mentioned your wife earlier. You got some great kids. Tell us all about them.
Yeah, I've been married. The girl that took me to the University of Florida, then down to Miami, she became my wife. We've been married now for 33 years. Got 2 daughters that are now grown and married and off to starting their lives as well. So
congratulations,
very happy,
man.
Thank you.
Thank you for your family's service to our country, and thank you to you and the Braves, and we really appreciate your support for the Warrior Alliance.
Thank you.